the Blights have fractured, and Luz has taken Hunter's place. It is a dangerous mission, she knows that, she's well aware of it, and yet she persists anyway. Because she wants to rescue Ida. Because she views those guys as her family. They're the ones who've been there for her, and she's not going to let them be captured, or worse, by Belos. And this is also a relief for Hunter, considering what Belos would do if he managed to capture Hunter. Kikimora might just believe that she's making taunts when she talks about Belos snapping him in two, but we know from Hollow Mind that he is not, considering what he has done to the other Grimwalkers in the past. Hunter is, of course, extremely anxious about being revealed as a Grimwalker, or really having any of these dark secrets related to Belos, and he doesn't want Luz to tell Gus, his close friend, or Willow, his friend, crush, and possible future love interest. What will being captured mean for Luz? The Day of Unity is obviously not going to be good news for anyone. Belos has increasingly strained relations with those around him. He is isolated and deracinated from the empire he constructed. No one knows his plans, truly, except for a select few, and everyone would turn against him if they knew. Even the Collector, that impish, inscrutable figure that Belos has been calling to for support, has become quite tense toward him. Who is using whom is not particularly clear at this point. But Belos, behind that facade of majestic British stoicism, is likely panicking. He's likely going to act out and act in increasingly resentful and erratic ways, and Luz needs to prepare for that. If he catches her, he might try to sacrifice her in a ceremony for the Day of Unity, or he might simply kill her. There are perhaps good reasons for him to kill her, considering that she is one of the few that knows the truth and could stop it from coming to pass, and could completely shatter Belos' very carefully, cautiously constructed image of this stern but benevolent emperor. But also, Belos could just strike out in rage against Luz. He could just explode with resentment toward her for everything she's done to try to stop him, but especially, I believe, for her turning Hunter against him. At least that's how Belos would see it. Belos believed with Hunter he'd finally created a Grimwalker who would listen to him, and this is not the case. And as for the relationship between Luz and Belos, I hope that we get some jagged, a bit harsh, and ambiguous interactions philosophically between them. I hope that it's not just simply, oh, hey, you're evil, I'm going to stop you. It is true that Belos seems to be one of the more deranged and fundamentalist villains in one of these acclaimed animated shows, and that he, contrary to the predictions a lot of us had, does not have any unfortunate backstory, and does not have any real philosophical beliefs outside of trying to kill witches because he believes that their presence is immoral and unclean and must be eradicated at all costs. But I do hope the show drills more into the parallels between these two, because there are a lot of parallels, unlike, say, to come up with two very common examples that y'all would know, Anne and Andreas, or Aang and the Fire Lord in Avatar. In both those cases, you could perhaps squint to see a few parallels, especially between Anne and Andreas, but they're vague at best. There are very explicit parallels between Luz and Belos, and these parallels are why Luz was so enthused to meet Philip Wittebane, because she believed that he, being the first human to come to the Boiling Isles that we know of, could actually help her understand what had happened to her and how to get home, and not just that, but how to better relate to being in this unknown, unforeseen world. But in truth, Belos and Luz react completely differently to landing in this world. Both of them start off as aliens to this land, isolated, confused, completely cut off from the traditions and customs and values of the world they once knew. But there is a significant difference, that being their approaches to adapting to this world. Belos makes a place for himself in this world by conquest and trickery. Despite having all these loyal and devoted followers, he never relinquishes his vehement disdain for witches. Luz, conversely, comes into this world from a much better place, as she was not happy at home, but she still comes into quite a few challenges in the Boiling Isles, and instead of reacting defensively and with resentment and a lot of bitter anxiety, she opens herself up and tries to help other people become as compassionate and thoughtful as she is. It doesn't always work, but it does work more often than it doesn't, as we see with the bond she formed with Hunter and especially with Amity, who is a completely different person than the quite pressured, scowling, surly person that we saw all the way back early Season 1. Now, as for Belos' plan, would anyone commit to it if they believe that it would do what it is going to do, which is kill a large percentage of the population? Most likely not. I doubt even Odalia would be so committed if she knew the truth. Belos certainly doesn't think that she would, and this is why he gave her an incomplete idea of what the draining spell on the Day of Unity will entail. She only believes that it will take away magic and not kill anyone, and that in the new magicless world, she and her family will be royalty. But even considering she only knows this is still quite callous and completely self-indulgent of her. She is willing to sacrifice her own magic and the magic of everyone else in this world just to attain more power and status. She does not care what anyone else in her family wants, and despite saying that she cares about her family's best interest and is working in her family's best interest, she is in reality someone who does not really care about the interests and hopes and dreams and ideals of the other members of her family. In fact, she seems to think of Alador, her husband, as a disgrace, and she thinks of her kids as annoying pests, even at the best of times. She does not really seem to have any concern for the well-being of her children, which is quite disturbing. Still, I do not think the idea of her eventually changing her mind once she realizes what Belos is truly planning is a completely absurd idea. As William James teaches us, the knowledge of what we know to be true is constantly in the process of revision and change. What is true to us now might not be true in the future. Perhaps we're mistaken, or perhaps we just change, or perhaps the situation around us changes, and we're constantly in the process of revising that body of knowledge that is what we believe to be true, what is true to us at a specific moment. It is not simply about, oh hey, this single revelation completely transforms our view of ourselves and the world around us. Rather, our ideas of what is true are constantly in the process of revision. Change operates much more slowly. It changes along with the world, and our relations to that world, and our ideas of ourselves. But even if Odalia does change, her change is not going to be that fundamental. It really does seem like the Owl House, while it is comfortable with some elements of ambiguity, especially in relation to the mysteries it cultivates, does give you pretty clear ideas of how to feel about its characters at any given moment. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but I do enjoy that even in a show like Amphibia, which, like the Owl House, is meant for the consumption of whole families, including children, you can have a character like Sasha be in a position in Season 2 where she believes that what she's doing is right, and her actions are understandable and motivated by good-hearted reasons and a desire to do what she believes is best for herself and those around her, while also not being necessarily right about everything. And even at the end of that show, you have Andreas, who the show is willing to treat with more subtle shading. He cannot become the reformist, thoughtful king he once hoped to be. He spent too long being consumed by his father's expectations for him and the rage and resentment that he felt when his friends betrayed him. And so he missed the opportunity to live a life of openness and change and constant evolution that he perhaps once wanted for himself, but he can still repent for his actions and live a life of resigned peace as a hermit farmer. I like that. But I don't want to act like I'm attacking or even sharply criticizing the Owl House for this. There are a lot of thoughtful moments of reevaluation and change that the show conveys in this episode, especially with Alador here, who realizes that he has not been the best father to his children. He realizes that he has spent so much time slaving away at a career and honestly at a marriage that have not given him very much. He is very passionate about trying to be a better father to his kids in the future instead of spending so much time on his work. This is not redemption or all these grandiose phrases that fans often use to describe a character's actions in a way I find honestly a little oversimplistic and mechanistic. Redemption has been stretched to the point of meaninglessness by overuse, but even on the broadest use of that term, it's not, oh hey, I was trying to do the best for my kids and I cared about them, but I was too consumed by my work and it cost me, so I'm trying to do better. That's not a complete change in the self. That's just someone trying to act on their moral convictions instead of being trapped in a cycle of drudgery and indifference, which is good, but it's not a complete moral transformation like redemption necessarily connotes. But those are minor things. As for Alador, I hope that he will commit himself to the protection of his daughter-in-law, who is going to be future daughter-in-law, who is going to be in great danger as she goes to Belos in the place of Hunter and confronts him, even knowing that he is likely not going to allow her to escape unscathed. Belos has become increasingly erratic and destructive. He's going to be difficult for anyone to handle, especially Luz, who has no idea what she's doing, and she has no grandiose, comprehensive plan. She just knows that she has to protect those she cares about. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this before anyone else can. Keep watching The Owl House. I can't believe we're only one more episode from the end of the season, and after that we only have the Season 3 specials left. What do you think the meeting of Belos and Luz is going to be? Sound off in the comments. Anyway, tune in soon for the next analysis. It will be coming soon. Promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.